Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Grid Dynamics webinar, Top Trends Shaping Application Modernization in 2022. We are so happy that you've taken time out of your busy day to join us, and we're really excited because we have some amazing panelists today that are going to share their thoughts on this important topic. So thank you all for joining. My name is June Bauer, and I'm your host for today. I want to encourage you to join with us. If you have questions, you can just click the Q&A button in the lower right-hand corner, and please feel free at any time during this webinar to send your questions to the panelists. We would love to hear from you and make this interactive. Looking forward to hearing all the interesting things we're going to learn today from our panelists. So let's get started. The first thing I do want to do is introduce you to our panelists. So can we go to our intro slide? Let's start with our panelists. And Moby, would you like to introduce yourself for us? And you can go off mute to do that.
Sure. Thank you so much, June. My name is Moby Mom, and I am a cloud architect with Inspire Brands. For those of you who do not know about Inspire Brands, we're a global multi-brand restaurant company. Our portfolio includes Arby's, Sonic, Drive-In, Jimmy John's, Dunkin' Donuts, Baskin Robbins. I am pretty much responsible of overseeing the entire end-to-end cloud architecture across the enterprise. And I work closely with I call him my doppelganger, Anirudh. He's the infrastructure engineering manager with Inspire Brands. Thank you for giving the opportunity for being a part of this panel, by the way, June. Appreciate it.
Oh, well, we love to have you. Thank you so much. I'm going to go to Anirudh next. And Anirudh, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, everyone, wherever you are. So my name is Anirudh Reddy, and my primary role is to build out new platforms, and primary responsibilities rolling out these platforms in an automated and infrastructure as following infrastructure as code standards. So major responsibility in building out these new initiatives across Inspire portfolio. Good to be here, and thanks for an opportunity to be here.
Well, we are excited to have you here, Anirudh, and really appreciate you taking the time to join. Sergey from Grid Dynamics, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. Hello, everyone. My name is Sergey, and I'm a principal DevOps architect at Grid Dynamics. I'm also currently heading the cloud and DevOps practice in the company. So basically, we're seeing majority of our operations in this space.
Fantastic. Thanks, Sergey. And last on our list today is Eugene.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to our webinar. My name is Eugene Steinberg. I'm founding engineer of Grid Dynamics and helped to start this company many years ago, and these days I'm heading our digital commerce practice, and happy to be here and share our experience in supporting and driving the platform modernizations.
Fantastic. Thanks, Eugene. And my name is June Bauer. I have been in the Silicon Valley working my entire life, and was very lucky to start my career at Apple Computer in the very early 80s, working for Steve Jobs and with that whole crew, and went on to marketing positions, vice president of brand at Adobe, corporate communications leader at Cisco, the head of WebEx marketing and the WebEx online business, and many other jobs. And I am so thrilled to be here today with all of you who've joined, as well as this amazing panel, because I love technology. And while I've done marketing, I always love to learn what's coming up in technology, and my guess is you do too. So let's start today. I want to involve you, our audience, right away and get your thoughts on a couple things. So if you wouldn't mind just answering a couple poll questions for us, it's going to help our panel to make their comments most relevant to you. And we're going to learn a little. So poll number one, and you can just click, it should have appeared on your screen. Where is your company on its modernization journey? And we'd love you to choose the answer that best applies to your company. So just thinking about it, started to modernize, but a long way to go. we are mid-transition and running into challenges, or the majority of our business is run on a modern or cloud platform, and we're looking for ways to create even more flexibility. So choose the one answer that best describes your company. We'll take a minute for that. And then Alex, would you mind bringing up the answers for us? All right, so we can see, this is kind of fun, right? We can see where people are at. Oh, we've got it. I guess you all, our audience is pretty well along here, because it looks like most of you have started, and some of you are even coming around to having your platforms up and running and looking for new ways to modernize and become more flexible. So only a small group is just thinking about it, but I think we'll have something relevant for everybody. So that's fantastic. Thanks for sharing. And we have one more question. And if you were listening to the intros, you might know this answer. So let's give it a roll. So which of the following is not an Inspire brand? So choose the one brand. Hey, no cheating and going on the internet. I know a few people are. So do it quick, because we're going to bring up the answers. Hey, no one gets any gold stars or anything for being right or being wrong. So just check the one and let's go look at the answers. Oh, we have a lot of people who were listening. That's impressive. So yes, Del Taco is exactly right. And if you were reading the paper this week, as I was, then you saw that Del Taco was acquired by Jack in the Box this week, but never owned, as far as I know, never owned by Inspire Brands. But those are some amazing brands. And we have two people on our panel today who've been working, as these brands have come to be one company, on all the systems that need to be in place. And they've been very proactive in really building out the best systems that they possibly can, and systems that are really set to be flexible and to grow into the future. So without further ado, let's bring the screen so we can just see people and don't have the slides showing. And I want to start asking our panelists some questions I know I've had on my mind. And again, I want to encourage you, if you have questions, just go to the Q&A and put them in. So Alex, can you take away the presentation so we can just see people on the screen right now? That would be really wonderful. And I'm going to kick off our questions. And Eugene, the first one is for you, because I know you've been in this business a long, long time, and you've seen a lot, and you've seen a lot of evolution. I'm really interested in getting your thoughts on the context around application modernization. So how did we get from this idea of monolithic systems to then the cloud, and now moving to this idea of application modernization and what we expect to see a lot more of in 2022? Could you give us a little thinking on that?
Yes, absolutely. And in our kind of decade, or even more than decade now, of experience working with the modernization of the various companies in digital commerce space, in finance, and in other places, we see a pretty much the same main driver behind this. And this driver is a response to the change. So the only one thing in our current situation and in our current life remains constant. This is the change. And the speed with which the change is happening is only accelerating. We are going through economy upturns and downturns. We had a bull run of our economy for the last few years. Before that, we had a crisis. Now we have a pandemic and post-pandemic. And the level and the speed with which the business context and business ecosystem is changing is only accelerating. And all this is putting a lot of stress on the business models with which we are running. And this put a lot of strain into our IT systems and technology systems which are supporting our business models. And the only thing which business owners and business leaders want is faster and faster adoption to the change. And there is nothing wrong with monolithic systems because they are simple. They are tightly connected. Everything is more or less less moving parts. Things are well defined over the decades of experience building monolithic systems. The only problem with monolithic systems is they're really not very good at responses to change, because the change have to happen at a different pace, because the systems which are at the core of your business, they have to move slower than the systems which are at the top of the funnels, the top of the system, because the systems in the bottom have to be super stable, they have to be super reliable, and the systems on the top, which are close to the customer, have to be very fast. They have to quickly change, and you have to allow a lot of experimentation with that. And if you are running a monolithic system, then what you have is something which tears apart your system, because you're trying to move at completely different speed in the same system, which is very, very hard to do. And that created a drive towards separating your systems first into the service-oriented architectures, and then to even microservices, which like increasing the granularity of the system. And now with the latest trends, for example, in digital commerce, there is a huge trend towards the composable commerce, which means that your systems are not necessarily all have to be developed and supported in-house or brought in your own ecosystem. You have to integrate with the thousands, like of, not maybe thousands, but hundreds, like maybe dozens of different systems in the cloud, and how to do that in a reliable and controllable way. So that's the kind of problems which composable commerce solves in the digital commerce space. And again, just to reiterating, the main reason why we have architectures is to be able to respond to change. And that's why the current transition to more and more granular microservices-based architecture is so important, and cloud is a huge enabler there. And yeah, so the reality is that we have to be all adaptable, and survival of the fittest is the real deal right now in the IT space.
Great. That's fantastic. Thank you for that background. That's super helpful in setting the stage. So now let's get pragmatic here. And Moby, I want to start with you and ask you at Inspire Brands, what was going on in the company that made you and the team there decide that you needed to move towards digital transformation?
Thank you, June. So like we all know, each company has a unique set of challenges with their technology and platform stack. And thus, we see there's a consistent need of moving away from the legacy paradigm and the mindset. For us, honestly, the need was palpable. Managing custom platforms for each brand was becoming day by day challenging, given the multitude of issues we are facing with maintainability, scalability, and reliability. And additionally, we wanted to release our feature capabilities with fast time to market requirement, keeping the overarching practice of DevOps and platform infrastructure automation intact. And therefore, bringing together all our brands onto one core platform was really the dire need that really embarked us all onto this digital transformation journey. Furthermore, we wanted to leverage infrastructure as a code paradigm and DevOps as a tool set, including infrastructure, for the entire organization. And honestly speaking, as we all know, a lot of companies have actually failed at digital transformation and have spent a fortune to attain a specific maturity level. So impeccable planning execution were actually needed, but they were actually quintessential for being successful in any of the digital transformation journey. So, and that's the reason why we embarked on the digital transformation. So we have, we bring all the brands into the one core platform, and then, using all the different tool sets and latest and greatest tool sets that are available, so we can actually respond to the end users in a timely fashion. Any features, capability, any requirements that may come down the pipeline, and so on and so forth. I'm sure that what my colleague Anirudh would like to say something else about that as well.
Yeah, so just to adding on to Moby's point, if you look at Inspire portfolio, there are a lot of brands coming in, and maintaining these tons of systems individually, it's a nightmare. So how do we approach this problem? So the motivation behind this is having consistent patterns across enterprise consistent ordering systems, consistent restaurant technology systems, so that manageability is easy and seamless. And at the same time, not having a lot of technical debt, leveraging different components, right? So that's the main reason and motivation behind getting onto this journey of practicing discipline development and having this consistent patterns across enterprise, so that we keep our standards and we follow some strict guidelines and security features as well. So that's one of the main motivation behind our digital transformation story here.
That is really actually incredibly interesting, and it's kind of inspirational to tie it into your brand, to think that, not only can you bring all of those brands together and put them on one platform, it makes it better for the development team. It also makes it better for the consumer, right? And hopefully it's going to be less work in the end than trying to maintain all these separate brands. So
absolutely.
Very exciting. So tell me, and maybe Moby, we can go back to you, but I'm interested in, how does application modernization specifically fit into this digital transformation journey?
Sure. So I think for that, Anirudh, I'll let you take that, because I know you've been at the forefront of making a few decisions. So, and then I'll chip in as well.
Sure. So application modernization fundamentally is necessary for an enterprise, that is looking to innovate and deliver a friction-free or rapid launch of features. And the main advantage we are looking at on this journey is the business agility, what we're getting, and the features, the pace at which the features are being rolled out, having these consistent systems and leveraging the cloud. Like many other companies running on-premise, are bound by this infrastructure and the rigid state of data centers at this point. So modernization on the cloud is giving us the agility to take advantage of these pre-built services on the cloud, so that we don't have to, build it from the scratch, and which these services are already scalable, and basically stitch them together and create a new digital platforms which can be served across multiple domains, multiple verticals inside Inspire as well. So reusing these common patterns across the enterprise gives us a better opportunity, for maintaining them and following some strict security guidelines as well. So that's basically what we are getting from this application modernization, enhancing our existing systems or refactoring some of the existing systems to follow a certain set of standards we are setting across.
I think that's really interesting. And I know, Moby, you probably have something to add, but if I may just ask you, Anirudh, so what were the benefits you got out of that? I mean, how did that improve for your company, your brands, for perhaps the consumer?
Yeah, so definitely, I think rolling out of features is much more stable and it's much more easy right now. So you develop it once and you can reuse the same methodology or the same set of code across different brands. So that delivery of these features is a lot easier right now. So let's take an example. If you want to release out a feature for a single brand, if we have different systems, the development work has to be done separately when compared to another brand, right? So having these systems or complex systems coming together and operationalize in a single entity, I think that gives us much more flexibility in rolling out these features at an easier way and across the brands in a faster set, right? So I think that's the main advantage of having this, and we can have a consolidated team managing these systems as well, so that you don't have to go and figure out what's happening with one brand which might be completely different with another. So that's our main benefit behind this journey across application modernization, what we see.
That's great. Thanks for illuminating that. And Moby, do you want to comment on that?
Actually, Anirudh did a pretty good job of summing everything together. He probably hit all the right notes, but I would second everything what Anirudh said. I think the transformation journey has been daunting, but at the same time, I think we have learned a lot of lessons, and I'm sure that at some point we will talk about those lessons. But it has given us really a tool set, like I had previously stated, to leverage that across multiple organization units within the enterprise, right? So you have repeatable pattern that you know that you were successful leveraging that pattern across one organization unit, let's go ahead and replicate that feature set across multiple organization units. And therefore you can actually replicate the same success multiple times. And that was the main mindset behind, digital transformation and how we started the whole thing to begin with.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. It sounds like it's really a different world when it comes to being able to build these platforms that are flexible. It also sounds like it probably has been a really interesting adventure for both of you and your teams in learning this and building it out. So I love it. Very exciting. So great to hear about Inspire Brands and what you've been doing. Sergey, I want to turn to you for a minute and ask you, because I know Grid Dynamics works with Inspire and many other big brands as well, do you have an example of another company that's gone through this journey and what they've done?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I could provide a lot of examples actually, but I'll try to stick to one. Eugene actually kind of nailed it in his answer. Any modernization is a response to change, and obviously no one wants to spend money just for the sake of technology, right? And one of our customers, one of our long-term customers, it's iconic retailer. And they decided to enter the digital commerce business, something new for them back at the time. And it was quite a huge change in both technology and mentality for this company. Imagine being a brick and mortar retailer. They probably just put some server in the back of their data center, put some simple websites, and it was generating maybe a fraction of percent of revenue for them. And nowadays, customers, they want their beloved brand to be with them pretty much anywhere, in store, online, on a mobile phone, on some wearables. They want this experience be accessible through all possible channels, and they want these channels to blend transparently. And in order to get to the state, this company had to adapt and had to evolve their e-commerce experience into cloud-based omnichannel microservices platform. And what's important there is they did not only transform their technology base, but the culture. And that was a huge change going from a traditional IT to cloud-based delivery strategies.
Yeah, that's interesting. And I do think that's a great example to highlight how external change going on is so important to be able to respond to and to be successful with. And I know the example you're talking about, and I think that company has had such a major turnaround because they've been willing to build a flexible platform that's given them the ability to not only generate new revenue, but I think respond to more market changes very quickly. So
maybe I can add some color to that, June, if you don't mind.
Please, Eugene.
So yeah, we both worked with this company for quite some time, and of course, one of the really transformative experience was on the IT front when we started to deploy our services in the cloud. Because before that, in the beginning of the year, there was a massive meeting. Like everybody was getting in the room and saying, okay, now like by the end of this year, we will have to deploy this and this workloads and the new services and the new functionality and all this beauty. How many servers will we need to put into our data center, and how many network bandwidth we will consume, how many disk space, and how many CPUs we will need? Please, our DO technical leaders tell us right now, even before you started development of those services and solutions, how many servers we will have to procure to support us through our Black Friday and Cyber Monday events. And we had like to sit there and say, guys, we really don't know, like how we can tell you maybe in September. No, our procurement process takes 6 months. You have to create like this business definition document and engineering definition document, and after that we'll go and buy and amount of servers. We'll put them in data centers. We will wire them.
Wow.
We will attach them to vSphere. We will do all this. But tell me now, how many servers do you need?
That is wow.
And this is how you kill your business in the very beginning. And when we finally said like we don't care, and like we really don't care, and when we started to show them how you can just say, okay, like I need 20 more servers or 50 more servers, and in 1 hour your systems are deployed across this 50, it was mind-boggling. And people like they couldn't compute. Like what happened is they said, I cannot compute. And this is how the transformation happens. And this is the response to change which has to happen inside the enterprise. And this was many years ago when cloud was just emerging. But even now in 21st, like in the good portion of 21st century, there are organizations which are still having an ancient limitations, completely artificial limitations in their approach to software development and their approach of the cloud. So that's just one of the examples which I wanted to give.
Yeah, that's a great example. And I know Sergey and Eugene, you probably have many more examples, which is fantastic. So I love that. Exactly. Exactly. So I want to hear, so this has been really positive and really inspiring. Now we're going to just get a little bummed out right now, because I do know that this doesn't just happen automatically and that it takes a lot of work and a lot of planning. And I'm sure there've been some challenges along the way. And I think just for our audience's sake, it'd be really helpful if Moby and Anirudh, if you'd be willing to share what some of those challenges were for you as you began and continued on this journey. So Anirudh, do you want to kick it off, or Moby, whichever of you feels more comfortable?
Yeah, sure. I can start and Moby can just add on if I miss anything. All right. So I think when we start this digital journey, there's also a people aspect which comes into the picture. So wherein there is a need to upskill and learn new technologies and start working in an agile way. So that's the people aspect which is also coming in. So end of the day, engineers are responsible for delivering all these critical and tailored solutions for the brands, right? So that's the reason we are partnering up with Grid Dynamics and helping us out in this journey and keep us moving on this. So as a matter of fact, so there have been training sessions going on internally for the engineers, to pick up new tools, to start working, leveraging a lot of these open source tools as well. And another challenge is, how do you take the systems which have been so successful in the past, which are running for the few years, and onboard them onto the new systems, right? How do we plan it out so that you just don't want to use cloud just for the sake of it, but you want to see real value in it, right? So how do you manage that continuity of business while we modernize, and what kind of cutover strategies do we have to plan around, to seamlessly move the brand from one platform to another? So I think these are some of the challenges what we've seen, which is going on, but we're trying to upskill ourselves internally. All the teams are working on it as well, and leveraging a lot of tools for these cutover strategies and continuity of the business while we are trying to modernize these platforms as well. So I think, Moby, you want to add something?
Can I, do you mind if I just ask a question? And then
Sure.
I always do this to you, Moby. I'm sorry, but
no
I'm
problem
so curious.
at all.
I'm curious, Anirudh. So when you said you had I love this idea of, bringing your own team up to speed and making sure that your team now knows how to manage these platforms and to use them to get the best value. But I'm wondering, on the training, how does that happen? I mean, is that something that your vendors help you with, or where do you get that expertise to train people, or does one person on your team learn and become an expert? How does that work?
That's right. So we had a series of digital boot camps. For example, Terraform is something we heavily use, and we have training sessions internally for the team, to get them up to speed on how to use it, what are the best practices, how do you follow certain security standards with this. And at the same time, we're also looking for new talent, which is a combination of, combination of engineers who have been in the restaurant space, so that they are subject matter experts in that, and a combination of new age engineers who can work together and help them out, help each other out in getting this journey much more accelerated, and get that ease of delivering these platforms. So it's a combination of both training and set of engineers coming on board who have these new skills, and set of engineers who are really expert in this restaurant technology space. So working together, I think it's a positive outcome for all of the teams together in delivering this custom products for the brands.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So combining that idea of educating the team that's there, and then also hiring two types of engineers that can bring that value. And it sounds like all those things together are really important as part of your transformation. I love that. Thanks for sharing.
And just to top it off, June, I think training, but I think what we have noticed in our journey is the documentation goes a long way. Documenting each and everything. For a fact that if you're onboarding new team members, right, they have some experience, some skill set. However, in order for them to get trained on the pipelines that you have put together, right, the infrastructure automation that you have put together, right, in order for them to walk it through, it will take them weeks and weeks of training. But what we have seen that when we're actually doing the training, we tend to record all these conversations. So we have the training catalogs available in our spaces where you can download the video, so you can get trained at your own time, instead of you taking some time off from somebody else to train you for it, right? And I think that whole mindset has really taken us, propel us, if you will, in the direction that we have never seen before, because each and everything, piece by piece documentation, it has really gone a long way for us.
That's really interesting. So you've actually, while you've been scaling your own platform, you've been scaling your ability to bring people along, and also your team.
Right. And that helps not only our team members, but also if there's any organization unit or any other team within the same digital platform, if they need access, if they want to know how this particular paradigm works, they could just very well just get acclimated with the documentation and, set up a follow-up meeting if they have to.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. I think, it's very pragmatic, but these are things that when, you've got to bring a whole new team, it's not just about changing the technology and transitioning the technology, but it's transitioning the team to the technology. So right. I love it. And I think considering those things as you're going on this journey is going to be really important to your success. Eugene, I want to turn to you because, you've worked with a lot of companies on this idea of, modernizing their applications, also modernizing their platforms. And I'm curious, what have been some of the other challenges you've seen? And can you share any pragmatic types of solutions that our audience today might be able to put into practice in their own organizations?
Well, one of the major challenges in the response to change is always the organizational challenges rather than technological challenge. Technology is already there. We have best practices, we have blueprints, we have success stories. Then people are technologists know what needs to be done to modify the monolithic applications into microservices. At the same time, it's harder to bring those changes into the organization, to transform the organization from the large teams which are working on the monolith into the small pods or guilds or whatever is the fancy name, which means like a few or small number of people who are working together on the same problem and driving an end-to-end value instead of like building some smaller layer deep inside of the technological stack. So this is like we're driving this organizational change is one of the problem. But second big problem which we see in the organization is actually over-engineering, because many of the companies are reading too much blogs and listening too much to the consultant like us, and starting to build systems on the Netflix scale when we are not Netflix. And we don't need to be Netflix in the next 20 years, or we don't need to be Google or Facebook in the next 20 years. Sometimes you don't need to have to deploy like a spanner when you need MySQL. Sometimes you don't need to deploy Spark-based massively distributed ETL job just to run just optimize the job which is running for 2 minutes, and there is no foreseeable future when it like sometimes you don't need streaming when you don't need streaming. So making this choice pragmatically and avoid building the systems which are driven by the ambition of the engineers and like driving engineers to be very pragmatic about the solutions, and yet to be aware about emerging technologies where they do make sense, and where they allow to really streamline implementations and really accelerate them is one of the key responsibilities of enterprise architect. So from one perspective, shut down the over-engineering, and from another perspective, empower engineers to innovate. So finding this balance is challenging. So yeah, don't build Googles yet, and at the same time, don't forget about innovation. That's one of the big lessons to stay pragmatic on your modernization journey.
I love that advice. I think that's great. Maybe not as fun. I mean, you might want to try to build the next Netflix, but probably not at work. So very, very good advice to be pragmatic about it. So back to my Inspire team here. I'm really interested now. I know you started this about a little more than a year ago. Is that right?
Yeah, specifically for consolidating the digital platforms and stuff.
Yeah.
Right.
So have you seen any results yet from the work? And maybe can you share with us what some of those are? And if you haven't seen a lot yet because you're still involved, maybe where do you expect to see results, and what are those results?
So one of the biggest advantages, honestly, June, that we have seen is continuous delivery, or the leveraging continuous delivery, the entire pipeline. So we can actually deliver defects, features to our end users in a timely fashion. For example, right before Thanksgiving, a critical bug had been identified that could have adversely impacted our revenue stream. The bug was logged against our application lifecycle management tool. Developers worked on it. We leveraged the pipeline, the CI/CD pipelines, deployed the code to our pre-prod environment, and the hotfix was ultimately deployed to production in less than 24 hours. Another example, and I'm pretty sure Sergey Plastinkin would agree 100%, would be just pure awesomeness of infrastructure automation, where the same set of infrastructure as a code modules can be deployed to any environment with minimal intervention from any engineer, if you will. So consistency across all the brands and continuous delivery, I think we have learned many, many things from it. And I think we have more ways to go, if you will.
Great. I think that's really interesting. And Anurag, do you want to add anything?
All right. Okay. So, like I said, having these common libraries and common patterns in place, so it's really giving us you only write once and you just reuse for each and individual deployments. So that gives us an ability wherein you don't have to redo or replicate the same amount of work at different spaces, right? So we are heavily into writing modules, parameterizing them, having shared libraries and distributing them, so that avoiding this replication of work across different brands is not going to happen. So I think those are the initial benefits what we really see right now. And having this consistent infrastructure across multiple digital platforms is also helping us out, so that it's easy to identify things which go wrong. Easy to, I mean, like if you see an issue going on in another brand, so you can clearly say that, okay, this is what it's been identified and we have to also fix it on the other one. So those kind of patterns is what is really helping us right now in order to deliver much more faster and having this following at the same time the standards which are being set. So
that's great, and that's really helpful. I love that. Do you see, besides, I think, Moby, what you brought up, which is that this bug didn't cause problems in terms of something probably related to ordering, but are there any other specific consumer benefits to what you're doing? So to your brand's customers?
What we have done basically as an enterprise, since our portfolio contains, multiple brands, what we have done sort of gap analysis, or, if you would, SWOT analysis across all the brands, figured out the strengths and weaknesses and opportunities, and how can we converge all those different gaps into one core feature set. So one brand has the same feature sets as the other brand, right? When we went through this whole process of adding the brands into our portfolio, we realized that one brand had many features, aside from the other brand that we had added to our portfolio for a very long time. So the gap analysis really helped, because now, since all brands are consistent with the feature set, and then obviously you can turn it on and off using the feature management toggle tool, but that's aside from the fact. But having the strengths and weaknesses across all the brands has really enabled us to meet our customer, obviously, requirements and requests that, hey, it would be great if the brand A feature would have XYZ, and brand B would have XYZ. And now all those features are kind of consistent across the board, and that's really the reason why we've been looking at the success rate that has really enabled us to introduce those features across all the brands, if you will.
No, that's really smart, and that's great. It's great to know that. It's great to know what your strategy should be, and actually rolling this out and making sure. I mean, because I think Eugene's comments really tied into this too. It's like you want to set yourself up for a success, which doesn't mean just going out and building the biggest and best thing you possibly can. There's some steps involved, and that's a really smart way to roll it out and get that success. So I love it. So we called this webinar, looking at top trends for 2022, but so I do want to get to 2022. And Anirudh, I'm interested from your perspective at Inspire, what do you see for 2022 in terms of your organization and where you want to go?
Right. So there are multiple teams in Inspire at this point. So some of us are working on the new age digital platforms, and some of them are taking care of, moving some of our on-prem workloads onto the cloud as well. So I think probably we'll be looking at, how do when we do a lift and shift. Right now we're following that lift and shift of pattern to move away from on-prem to the cloud. But I think we're going to look at refactoring, rebuilding some of these systems which have been running on-prem to leverage more of the cloud features, cloud native features, so that even those services are really scalable and adaptable for this consumer demands at this time. So I think we would be trying to concentrate on those as along with the new age digital platforms what we're trying to build, and also look at new patterns. Again, like Eugene said, we don't want to over-engineer ourselves, so we just want to stick to the basics and keep the stack as simple as possible. At the same time, get the features from the cloud like scalability and support our brands in all of their promotional days, and serve and give a good experience for the user who's landing on our platforms. So,
yeah, that makes sense. Moby, would you like to add something?
I think when we talk about data center migration strategies, right? Everybody thinks about it, talks about the 6 R's: the re-platform, the re-architect, re-host, so on and so forth. What we have done, we have actually taken a couple of R's from that strategy, and what Anirudh was, had stated previously about, migrating our on-premise workloads to actually, our cloud vendor Azure. So the thing is that what we realized that some of these workloads are pretty critical mission, these are critical heavy workloads that we probably need to modernize next year, because I think right now it works, but it's not meeting all the demands that we have in the queue. And therefore, to meet all the demands, we have to modernize. So the next step is to, after we have done the rehost, we call it lift and shift, is to modernize some of these workloads so they're more suitable to the cloud native solutions. And so we're, obviously addressing the agility, the scalability features that are available in cloud. And I think that's what we're looking into. And plus, obviously, onboarding additional brands as well onto the platform. And that's something that we're probably looking at next year as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, I think that's great. I mean, there's a lot of work to do, right? But there's also, a lot of new tools and things that are being brought to market. And I think, it's an exciting time. I think it's a really exciting time, and probably a great time to be an engineer in an organization too, to be a part of this change and experience it and have the opportunity to work with it. So I'm a bit envious of the engineering in your organization. I'd like
Definitely
to join.
exciting times to inspire brands. We could tell you that, but
Oh, well, that's cool. I love to
yes.
hear that. That's great. Yeah, it sounds like you guys are growing and doing incredibly well. It's great for us too, because we love your brands. So I'm curious, if I'd like to ask each of you now to share with us maybe one lesson that you learned that you think would be really important for our lovely audience here today to know, that might help them in their journey. Kind of keeping in mind now that people aren't just starting on this journey, so most of our audience has some kind of a head start. But I'd love to learn, and maybe Eugene will give Anirudh and Moby a break here and start with you.
Well, I already kind of spoke about many lessons which we may have as one of the key thing is that I would, in modern climate, in a modern situation, I would avoid 5 or 3 years roadmaps. Who knew in 2019 what will happen, and I would focus on making the work in smaller chunks, setting up a very clear and pragmatic priorities, keep your team honest with the need to bring in yet another kind of fancy technology, and really justify the need for this, and at the same time keep them on their toes to watch the market and identify the really interesting and transformative things which are happening. But still remember that many things in the hyperscalers and technical giants are happening because we need them on their scale. So and of course, in the modern climate, don't hesitate to leverage the cloud native capabilities, because people worked long and hard to make the things work at scale and work reliably. And most likely you want to focus on your business rather than excelling in the configuration of another message bus and maintaining your own database. So like, think of your customers, think of your differentiating abilities, and invest where you really want to be different on the market.
So I think, Eugene, I think that's great advice. And I like the idea of connecting up what you are doing in your business and your business strategy with what your technology and technology strategy needs to be. But also, I think your point of don't just rush to implement, but think strategically about what's going to make a difference and when it is and how it ties to your business. And I think that's great advice for another reason, which is ultimately to get your company on board and supporting this. And I think what you guys at Inspire did so well is, you chose something people really cared about to start. You got that early success, and now you're really rolling that out and building it into something even bigger. I think it ties exactly into what Eugene was saying. So I think that's really, really helpful. So from Inspire, were there any lessons that you guys learned that you think would be helpful to share with the audience today?
Really critical lessons, June, that I would say, or I would like to bring up, that when we had embarked on this whole digital transformation journey, what we realized that I think one of the things that perhaps we could have tweaked a little bit better on, having the platform, or maybe, having the platform up and running for maybe 1 or 2, I would say maybe a month or 2 months well advanced when we were onboarding our developers onto the platform. That would have taken us a long way. We had a problem where, not so much friction or anything like that, but we did delay some of the developers getting onboarding to platforms so they can start leveraging the CI/CD pipeline, so they can start deploying the artifacts, so on and so forth. And the only reason that we were actually still planning, we were still in the planning phase, not in the execution phase, but then the developers actually began their execution phase at the same time. So I think if we could have actually tweaked the plan, I think one of the lessons would be, if you're embarking on a journey, tweak the plan where you have the platform. It doesn't have to be mature, it doesn't have to be stable, but have it, get it ready a little bit before when developers will be needing the platform. So you have ample time to address their concerns, their needs, their reservations, their feedback, so on and so forth. I think that would be, in my opinion, would be one of the critical lessons that we learned from our whole transformation journey.
Oh, well, thanks for sharing that. I think that is incredibly helpful. And maybe Anur, do you have anything to add to that, or another lesson you learned?
Yeah, sure. I think, like Eugene said earlier, I think over engineering is one of the critical component what teams tend to do a lot of times. I mean, so when you're starting this journey, let's take the first step and let the system prove itself rather than dumping a lot more features or a lot more components on top of it. So we had a couple of instances of those sort, but we quickly realized saying that, okay, let the system prove itself first, and then we'll think about additional options. So over engineering is something you definitely have to realize at some point and act upon it rather than realizing it later and wasting a lot of amount of time. So that's one key thing which I would suggest everyone, or in fact from our experience, what we've learned so far. So yeah.
No, that's great. I love it. I think that so far, great pragmatic ideas. And Sergey, how about you? You worked with Inspire, but I know you've worked with a lot of other big brands out there. Any lessons learned from your point of view that you might be able to share with our audience?
Absolutely. And I would actually like to add a grain of salt to it. All what folks said, it's actually a very great point, but that doesn't mean that you should not have a strategy. Because what we see is like one end of the spectrum is plan everything ahead, have a 10-year-old roadmap, implementing this, and this, and by the time you end your journey, it's already outdated. On the other side, what we saw is different companies are trying to do everything at once. Little experiment here, little experiment here. And what happens at the end of the day, you have a DLL 2.0. You have zoo of technologies, you have zoo of clouds, even in some cases. And now when it's time to actually to put this system into production use, you have to fly with what you get. You don't have time to re-architect or always spaceship again. So experimentation is fine. Scaling the technology is fine, but some kind of a vision which should result out of these experiments and out of this experience, that's something important to have. So you should see the end state goal, not from a technology perspective, probably because technology changes, but from a business and from the architecture and ideology.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I think that's such great advice, Sergey. And I love it, because I think almost any big project you're going to embark on, you want to start with that vision.
Exactly.
And it serves many purposes. Part of it is exactly what you're saying. You're not going to end up with all these little separate pieces that don't fit together. But it serves as a guide, not just for the development team, but for the whole company, in terms of what this means, not only to how you develop in the future, but what it means to the company, to what the company can do, and ultimately to your end customers and how their lives will be different. And that's really exciting. And so having that vision to start, I can totally understand it. Although it's so fun to start implementing and building things and testing, I totally understand. We do it as marketers too. But I think that vision is critical. And I love that you brought that up. And I love that that's really our last word today, because I think it is about inspiration, then putting a plan together and executing, about getting the right talent, to Anur's point, and the right training, and doing it systematically. So I personally learned a lot today. I hope you, as our audience, did as well. We have been so happy to have you here today to be a part of this conversation. I do want to thank this panel. This was an amazing panel. You guys were so great because you made me laugh, you made me smile, and you also taught me so many things, and I hope our audience as well. And so appreciative to all of you for taking the time out, our panel and our audience today, for being a part of this Grid Dynamics webinar. We do webinars often, and we're going to have some really exciting webinars coming up at the beginning of the year in 2022. So we sure hope you can come back and join us. But in the meantime, happy holidays to everybody. Hopefully everyone's going to get some time off to relax and enjoy. I hope you have a great rest of the month, and we will see you back in 2022.
Thank you so much, June. Appreciate
so much,
it.
guys.
Looking forward to another webinar then.
Bye-bye.
See you guys. Okay.